This is one of my favorite gospel stories, and full of imagery, full of power, and the glory of God revealed. And there's a lot of imagery and sensory elements in it that we don't often get in our gospel texts. Today we hear about tears, including Jesus weeping. We hear about the stench of death. We hear of deep love between friends, a family of siblings with whom Jesus was very close, Mary and Martha and Lazarus. It's a very human story because it's a story about death. From the moment we are born, our death is inevitable. It is perhaps the truest thing in our lives, the one thing we cannot escape. And this doesn't seem like good news, but it is our truth. And as Father Robert Farrer Capon writes, it's the dead who are Jesus' dish, not the living. Death is where Jesus works best. And Lazarus was dead, and we are dead in sin, and these mortal bodies will die. But death is where Jesus works best. After Jesus hears that Lazarus is ill, he waits an additional 2 days before he goes there, and we might wonder about that. Why? But Jesus knew what would be revealed, and he knew that Lazarus needed to be good and dead for this miracle. Not just, he just took his last breath dead, but 4 days dead. Lazarus was good and dead when Jesus reached him. And Jesus does arrive in Bethany, and he is greeted with grief. We can imagine the weeping, the wailing that arose from the depths of those who loved Lazarus. We can't escape grief either, just like we can't escape death. Inevitably, we will lose our beloved ones to death, and our grief feels like it swallows us. Jesus enters this scene of mourning, and the events that transpire here tell us all we need to know about who Jesus is. He weeps with us, and he raises us. He meets us in our pain, and he walks right up to our grave. He feels our heartbreak, and he calls us back to life. Jesus is not deterred by our sorrow, our pain, our hopelessness, our despair. Jesus weeps with us. Jesus feels our pain with us. And Jesus is not scared off by the stench of death. I love that particular description in this gospel, that Lazarus has been dead so long that there is a stench. This is not something anyone would walk up to willingly. When there is a stench, we turn away, we cover our noses, we back up. It's not something we walk toward. But Jesus does. Jesus goes right up to it and says, "Take away the stone." And it's not just death that he's not scared of, it's what radiates out from it, the stench, the byproduct, the evidence of death. He's not scared. Jesus is not scared off by the stench of death in our lives either. The consequences of our sin, the things that reveal our sinfulness, even when we think we've hidden it pretty well. Jesus is not deterred by the mess and the stink of our sin, not by our efforts to cover it up, to hide it away. Because that's what we do to dead bodies. We entomb them. We bury them. What Jesus does is call us out of the tomb and the grave. Take away the stone, he says. Take away the stone of shame and fear. Take away the stone of regret and jealousy. Take away the stone of anger and pride. Take away the stone of I'm not enough or I'm too much. Jesus says, take away the stone to all that keeps you feeling entombed, all that shuts you in and buries you. Jesus says, take away the stone, knowing full well what is behind it. There is a dead body, there is a stench, nothing but reminders of pain and grief behind that stone. and he says, "Take it away." Jesus prays to God, and then he calls out for Lazarus by name. And then we hear, "The dead man came out." John, when he wrote this gospel, could have said Lazarus came out, but he kept it, "The dead man came out." There's emphasis here that he's truly dead, and now he's walking out of the grave. And I also think there's another significance in calling him the dead man here, because next we hear that his hands and feet are bound in strips of cloth and his face is wrapped in cloth. He is still wrapped in his grave clothes. He is still bound up by the stuff of death. And in order to truly live, he needs help getting this stuff off. This is where community comes in. The story today also reminds us that we need community to walk us into that new life. Jesus says, "Take away the stone." Who moved it? Jesus says, "Unbind him, remove the grave clothes." Who took those off? The community. The stone is rolled away by someone else. The grave clothes are removed by someone else. Jesus' voice raises Lazarus, and the community is called to take it from there. And let's not forget our own place in this new life we've been given. One of my favorite Christian poets and artists, Jan Richardson, writes this: "I am continually struck by how Jesus calls out to Lazarus, but does not go into the tomb to drag him out. When he hears the sound of his name, spoken, I keep imagining, in utter love and hope, Lazarus has to choose whether he will take that first step that will lead him out of his own grave." And so we know all we need to know about our Lord Jesus in this story. His joining us in our pain and our weeping. His love that goes beyond our death, beyond the mess of our sin, and calls us out of the tombs that we were certain were sealed. Jesus raises us from our sin and our death, calling us out of the grave. And so, where does your first step out of the grave take you? Amen.